From the creators of the Next 15 podcast show, it's Words vs. Words with Friends podcast, featuring Jolene Santiago and Shemeka Montgomery. This is a fun, innovative, interactive podcast filled with stimulating discussions and healthy debates using words and phrases that we use every day. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Hi, welcome to Words vs. Words with Friends podcast. This is a fun, interactive podcast where we challenge your mind and perspective using everyday words and phrases. I'm your host, Jolene Santiago, and I have my co-host here, Shemeka Montgomery.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Words vs. Words with Friends. This is our season finale. We are so excited to have you here. If you're on Facebook Live, jump in the chat, give us some feedback. If you're on YouTube, give us some feedback. If you're listening in on Spreaker, any other platform, we are so excited to have you here tonight. Words vs. Words with Friends is a podcast created to bring back the real art of conversation. We want to create dialogue and also help you think outside the box. So tonight we have a very special guest, my baby sister, Kristen. So Joe, do you want to do an intro for Kristen?
Absolutely. Our very special guest, like what was just said, is Shemeka's sister. She's 30 years old and works in social work. She's passionate about helping vulnerable people and educating others who come from a place of privilege. She toes a line between introvert and extrovert. So she's just as happy by herself scrolling Twitter as she is about having an adventure with a friend. She doesn't like small talk and believes any time is the right time for ice cream. Treat yourself is her motto because life can be hard and we're all just trying to get through it any way we know how. Welcome. I'm sorry. Welcome, Kristen Yarbrough, to the show. Yay! Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So tonight, guys, our discussion is confrontation versus altercation versus conflict. And we're going to give those definitions so you'll have a little background on each one of those and then let you know who picked what as well. So for confrontation, we have the act or state of being confronted, for example, with the clashing of forces or ideas. Paraphrase from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. We have the act of directly facing or being encouraged or required to face a difficult situation, realization, discrepancy, or contradiction involving information, beliefs, attitudes, or behavior. And that's American Psychological Association Dictionary. And then also we have altercation, and we'll have the definition for that. It's a noisy argument or disagreement, especially in public. And then our last one will be conflict. And it's a clash between individuals arising out of a difference in thought process, attitudes, understanding, interests, requirements, and even sometimes perceptions. So, Kristen, as our very special guest, we'd like to let the guest go first. You can let us know which word that you picked, and then we will go from there.
Okay, so my word was confrontation. And I actually thought it was kind of interesting because I think a lot of times when people first think of confrontation, they think of that first definition of having a conflict or disagreement between two ideas. But I added the second definition in there because I think there can also be a healthy side to confrontation too. And so that's what I want to kind of talk about today.
And I do apologize. I did not give you guys the question, which is the easiest to resolve between confrontation, altercation, and conflict. So that is our question for tonight. So Joe, tell us which word did you pick?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have conflict. So I believe that conflict is the easiest to resolve. So I didn't hear Kristen, when did you say that you believe that your word was easier to resolve?
Yeah, I do think so. I think only because I think that there can be a healthy side to confrontation. I don't think that it always has to be two opposing forces, but I think sometimes you can confront maybe something that we're on the same team and we're confronting a problem together, or I'm confronting something myself, something maybe that I've seen as negative, something that I need to change or a flaw within myself. And I decide that I want to confront that. So I think if you go at it with set rules of engagement before you come in, then that makes it easier to resolve.
That's a good point. My word was altercation. And I know immediately when you hear altercation, you automatically think of confronting someone, or altercation. It's verbal, it's in public. But to me, it's the easiest to resolve because guess what? You have a choice. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's why I think altercation is the easiest to resolve, because you have a choice whether you want to participate or not. Because for altercation, you need at least two people. Okay. So if I decide that I'm not gonna get emotional or upset or angry, then guess what? It's the easiest to resolve because I'm not gonna be involved in it. So that's the reason why I think that altercation is the easiest to resolve.
But what gets you to that point? So when you're having an altercation, what gets you to that point where you are, where it gets volatile, where it gets hostile? How does it
Well,
get to that point?
Well, I think it gets to that point because your emotions are involved and you get riled up. And so I think that that's when you make a choice to kind of check your feelings and your emotions and make that decision not to get to that point, so that there is no altercation. Because the calmer you are, then the less chance that you will be involved in an altercation. Or if someone comes to you, you make that choice to retreat or to respond to them in a different way so that they don't get amped up, is what I think.
But once I get to that point of altercation, they've already had an exchange, some type of exchange going on. You have an exchange of
Well,
words, you're getting angry with each other. So there's already some
mhm,
type of feelings involved. So there was a conflict, there was a problem that was there. And I think that problem escalated. So that conflict escalated, and now you're at a different point, you're at a different level. So I
mhm.
think altercation, you've already had some type of exchange at that point.
But that's the thing, because with altercation, we looked at the fact that it's usually done in public. So another point I have is when there is a disagreement or a conflict, I think that what you can try to do is not do that in public, because it gets people amped up. We love drama, you know what I'm saying? So people like to see you get egged on. When I was in the 6th grade, people knew that I was a Christian. And so they wanted me to cuss. They wanted me to act the fool. They wanted me to get out of character. And so I had a girl that wanted to fight me over some gym clothes. And everybody just surrounded me and was trying to egg me on because they love the drama. They want to be able to say, "Oh, Shemeka, I thought you was a Christian. You over here acting a fool." So yeah, like, that's why I say you have a choice. You have a decision whether you want to participate in the altercation. And I also think that if you decide not to do it in public, it is better.
But an altercation is an altercation. You know what I'm saying? An exchange of words, you getting angry you've already crossed over. It's not just, hey, you're being presented with a situation or a problem. Altercation is that you've already had an exchange of words. And before that altercation arises, you have confrontation. You have
Mhm,
confronted, or you have approached the person.
mhm,
So, I think that I think conflict is easier to resolve, because even when you're presented with that problem, yes, you do have a choice. Am I going to engage in the situation, or am I going to take other steps? Because you can walk away. That part of a resolution can be to walk away. But when you get to the point where you confront the person, now you're coming at the person. What is your ultimate goal to come at the person? You're trying to show them something, you're trying to tell them something, you're trying to make a point. So even when you're engaging or having that heated argument, like you are in an altercation, you're trying to prove some type of point.
mhm. And guys, we want to thank you so much for tuning in, joining us, giving us feedback and comments. Monica says altercations can create violence. It's harsh exchange of words. Exactly.
Yes.
So the altercation, but that's what I was saying. If we look at the word altercation, what's those first 3, 4, 5 letters, alter, which means to change, right? Okay. So when we have an altercation, we can make the choice to change how we respond. So that's why it's the easiest to resolve. You can alter the situation. You know what I'm saying? You can alter it, change it, twist it. You know what I'm saying? And then there is no altercation because you have your emotions and your feelings in check. You have altered the situation, and it is the easiest to resolve.
Okay, so I knew you were going to go there with altercation. I knew you were going to use the word alter and change. But the thing about it is that it was a calm situation before the altercation happened. So what was the change was that it was calm and peaceful, and now it's not. Now you're hostile, now you're argumentative, now you're volatile. Now things have changed, but they've changed for the worse because now it was calm in the beginning, but now through that altercation, now somebody's yelling, somebody's feelings are getting involved. So I agree with you, Shemeka, there was a change, but there was a change from a positive to now a negative. Now you're all feisty and all hot and everything.
I see it differently. So Kristen, what are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts about confrontation?
Altercation, conflict.
Well, I think I see what you're saying about the way that you approach an altercation as one of the parties in an altercation. But I also think once it's gotten to a certain point and you have had some type of public conflict, in order to resolve it, now not only do you have to resolve the argument and try to come to some common ground, but you also have to, I guess, kind of try to heal, or you're trying to care for your pride at that point or the other person's pride because now other people are involved. So when you were in 6th grade and people were trying to egg you on, like maybe you had somebody who might want to support you. Maybe you had somebody who might have been afraid to say like, oh no, it's fine to be the way that you are. But if that person was your friend, like, and they didn't jump to your defense, once that crowd's kind of dissipated and everybody's calmed down, not only do you have to try to figure out how to continue to go to school with those people and continue to get along with them, you have to figure out, well, how are me and this person going to remain friends if they didn't come to my defense, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think altercation is something that's a step further than conflict, that you're already up here and it's a lot harder to de-escalate. And now you've got other different conflicts to try to de-escalate as well.
Okay. So Monica says, when you're in an altercation, you have decided to fight. I don't know, Monica, because with altercation, you know how you can alter the altercation is prevention. And the way that you prevent an altercation is altering it and deciding not to participate, deciding not to have a negative attitude. Joe, you said that you could twist it, but that's the thing. I see it differently. You can alter the situation, deciding that you can respond in a positive way. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when we talk about verbal, we're going to talk about our tone, the way that we handle somebody, because if I'm getting amped up, animated, my voice is elevated, then it's just going to amp the other person up. The way that you resolve that is you calm down, you speak calmly, you let the other person know, okay, the way that I'm acting calm, I understand where you're coming from. You know what I'm saying? I want a resolution. I want to resolve this issue by altering my tone. So that's why I think it's the easiest to resolve. You alter your tone, you alter your voice and the level of your voice. There are things you can do to step away from the situation, and you can prevent that altercation.
Well, Monica has a very good response here. She says, that's not an altercation if you decide to respond differently. Now that's confrontation. So when you change, yeah, sure, you did change your response. You did change your tone, but now you changed it and you're ready to fight. It's a verbal disagreement. It is usually ends up physically in some type of a physical fight. So now, and I want to say that confrontation kind of goes with altercation, because you can't have an altercation without a confrontation. So somehow or some way you are approaching that person, and it all comes down to your motives. What is the reason why you are confronting the person? What is the reason why? What do you have to prove? I think you have some type of point that you're trying to prove.
Mm-hmm.
So before you get to that point, when you have a conflict is easier to resolve because it's just a disagreement. I can disagree with you. My perspective can be different than yours. My thoughts, my processes, my thinking can be different than yours. That's a conflict. So there's no type of it doesn't have to be any negative words, no negative exchange or anything like that. It is what how you come across what the other person is saying that really takes it to the next step. Am I going to be confrontational or am I going to have an altercation?
But that's the thing. But we look at altercation as something negative. But back to my point again, it is easiest to resolve. Why? Because you can prevent it. You can prevent an altercation. You know what I mean? Because even if a person approaches you, guess what? You still make the decision to engage or not. You still make the decision to calm yourself down, speak in a softer tone. You know what I mean? Like you still have that choice. It's still up to you. So I do. If it goes past that point, then I mean, yeah, you probably gonna have to fight. You know what I'm saying? But you did all you could to alter the situation and try to resolve it.
So we have a question here. Linda says, "How do you resolve conflict?" So I'm going to. So one day I was driving, right, and I was driving. I was in the left lane, and I was in a passing lane, and so I'm passing cars on the right, right. All of a sudden, this motorcycle, right, comes in between. You know how they like to do sometimes? They come in between two cars, so they're passing right in the middle, right? As he does that, like he lays on the horn, and then he sticks his middle finger at me, right? And so me, like I got a little stirred up there. I was like, man, this is, to me, that's a conflict that I was presented with, right? I could have taken it a step further. I mean, my first reaction was not to pray. I was just like, man, I had all these thoughts through my mind. Like, boy, what am I going to do? I feel like speeding up and chasing after this person. I'm just laying it out there, right? And just being honest, right? But, I had to think, how am I going to approach this, And so for me, how did I deal with that conflict? I decided just to let it go. I just, you know what? Forgive, drop it. Don't make no big deal about it. I'm a type of person, I'm a Christian, I'm going to be quick to forgive, and just drop it and let it go. Some people can't these days. You have road rage out there. When a person, if I decided just to speed up, and I decided to follow that person, now I'm trying to start an altercation, and I'm going to be confrontational in my approach. So even before I get there, I made this decision and the choice that through that conflict, I'm just going to let it be.
But that's the thing. You did. No, go ahead, Kristen.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like both of you are kind of describing confrontation, though. Whenever you say that you're resolving something, I feel like at that point, then the two of you are able to meet in the middle. And so to me, confrontation is not something that's violent. It's not something that, or it doesn't always have to be something that's violent. I think a lot of times people can confront and can decide to engage that other person whenever they lay on their horn or whenever they make them upset. And that can turn into something violent. But I also think there's a version where maybe not in that example because you might not know them, but maybe if it's a coworker and you know that you two don't get along, and instead of being like passive aggressive and getting upset at them for little things, you both finally decide to say like, hey, there's a way that we need to work together. And so we have to figure this out. So I'm upset at you. I know you're upset at me. So let's lay down some rules of engagement. And I think at that point, you're both pretty de-escalated. So I think honestly, like confrontation out of the three is the goal, is kind of where you want to get to, that healthy version of confrontation. Before it turns into a conflict and you both are just on one side or the other and you're not moving, or before it turns into an altercation and you guys either get physical with each other or it becomes a public thing.
Mm-hmm. Monica has a comment. Thank you, Monica. She said, confrontation is positive and has a resolution or a position to reconcile. So I think that would only be true if your motive behind it, like what is your motive behind confronting the person? Because not, especially when two people are upset I've never ever seen any type of resolution come out of that if two people are upset. If you have one person who's upset and another person who is of sound mind and is able or has control of their feelings, then I can see that it's easier for them to approach the person and de-escalate that situation or those feelings that the person is having. But when I see two people that are upset, to me personally, I've never seen any type of resolution between that. People had to come back later and then had to maybe address whatever was going on.
That's good, Joe. So, guys, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break. We want to leave you with a question while we go to break. Do you think media has conditioned us into accepting conflict as the norm? So think about that, and we'll be right back on Words versus Words with Friends.
But if you're not inspired, everything else falls to the wayside. I can boost your head all day long, and you can tell yourself your truth all day long. But if you're not inspired internally to have the idea to go along with what you're being encouraged to do, then encouragement kind of can't function by itself.
And when you continue to press on and press forward, that is motivation. And motivation kicks in when nobody else is around, when nobody else is there to pat you on the back, when nobody's there to give you an inspiring story to help lift you up.
And that encouragement doesn't necessarily have to be seen. It can be something from within. It could be something that you were brought up with, and something that was instilled in you, even in your mother's womb.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to Words versus Words with Friends podcast. That was a clip from our last episode, and we have the results of that poll. So it is, which has the greatest impact? Encouragement. We found that 37.5% of you guys said it was encouragement. 37.5% said motivation. So that was a tie. And inspiration at 25%. Wow, that was a really good poll. And I'm telling you, those results were really good. It was very close. Also, I made a mistake last week, and I want to put a little correction out there. Which is more effective? Counseling was at 67%, mentoring was at 33%, and coaching was at 0%. So that was our 2 episodes ago. So I apologize for that mistake. I said that mentoring was 67%, and I had them switched counseling and mentoring. I also want to encourage you guys to vote after the show, which is the easiest to resolve. Altercation, conflict, or confrontation. You can go to our Facebook page at WvWWF, or even our personal pages, Jolene Vasquez or Shemeka Montgomery, and you can vote, and we will have those results out there for you.
That's good, Joe. Thank you for that. So before the commercial break, we asked the question, do you think media has conditioned us into accepting conflict as the norm? So Kristen, as our guest, we will present that question to you and just hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's loaded. Honestly, no. I think we like to try to blame. I think we like to try to find things and find reasons outside of what makes us uncomfortable to confront within ourselves. But like anyone would say, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So I think that just as humans, I think it's just part of being human. And I say this all the time, that when you're looking at somebody, especially if it's somebody that you disagree with or somebody that you think is doing something the wrong way, we're all trying to get a need met, right? And our behavior, the way that we act, the way that we respond to other people, whether it's subconscious, whether it's good or bad, maybe it's not the most appropriate way to try to get that need met, but there's something inside of us that's trying to get a need met. And so when you have conflict with somebody, you guys are on opposite sides of an issue, and it's hard for you to see their humanity, right? Because you're so worried about the problem, and you're worried about how are you going to fix this for me? Because my feelings are hurt, something's wrong with me. And I think that's a timeless problem. I think that that's just part of being human. And until you can see the humanity in somebody else, you're not going to be able to resolve that conflict. So I think that in certain ways, like media makes everything more accessible, right? Like it seems like for good or for bad, like when you feel like something's only happening to you, when you feel like you're the one that's upset, or that, you know, a conflict is only happening to you or people who look like you can kind of look to media and see, oh no, it's happening in other places. I'm not alone. But also, you know, it can highlight things and make it seem, depending on, like, make it seem like it's worse than what it really is. Maybe make it maybe more of an exaggeration. And so I think media maybe puts a magnifying glass. Maybe you just see it more often, but I think overall conflict is something that's just part of being human.
My sister's a deep thinker. So Monica says, you can't conquer what you don't confront. Try changing your perspective on confrontation. Confrontation at times is necessary to move forward in your purpose. Confront the pain of your past, your fears. Time to move forward. Healthy confrontation brings about a healthy resolution. And Monica, thank you for that comment. It was really, really good. And so, Joe, what are your thoughts about media and conflict?
So I think with the media, you know, that's our line of communication. I think we've gotten so used to going on Facebook, going on Twitter, you know, even just having conversations with people. We don't pick up the phone and talk to them anymore. You know, we text message them. We think that that's better, you know, than just having a face-to-face, you know, conversation with them. I think media has taken the place of having a healthy conversation with other people. We don't know how to speak to each other. We don't know how to resolve issues, you know, with each other. And I'm finding that even with kids at school, you know, they don't know how to ask for something. You know, they'll take it or they'll snatch, or they don't know how to resolve a situation or problem. The first thing that they're going to talk about is, you know, either I'm going to bash you on social media, I'm going to talk about you, I'm going to tear down your character, you know, or, you know, when we do meet face to face, let's go ahead and let's fight this out. Let's get physical. Let's fight or have an exchange of words. So I think media has taken the place of having that healthy communication, or even just a healthy debate, healthy discussion. We can learn how to disagree with each other, you know, and not get upset. We can learn how to have a conflict with somebody and just, hey, you know, I don't agree with you. You know, your perspective is different than mine, but I don't need to get upset. You know, I've actually had to teach kids in my classroom, hey, it's okay. They don't have to agree with you, and that's okay. You know, it's okay. But I just think that those strategies that we were taught, even when I was taught, because, you know, I didn't grow up with media and cell phones and all that. So we had learned strategies or techniques on how to talk to people, on how to resolve conflict.
And I think you are so correct. Both of you actually have really good points, because when it comes to media, it's very accessible. We can see things that are going, you know, live and live in color, as they say. And like she said, sometimes the media does magnify one specific issue, but I think they try to distract us from something else that's going on over here. So I do. I think that media, it can, we like the drama, you know, the reality shows and things like that. We want to see drama. We want to see some fighting, some conflicts, some altercation. You know, we want it not to be just verbal. We probably want to see some physical, which is not good. But anyways, so I think media, it can do that. And so we will get back to the debate, which is the easiest to resolve. I still think that altercation is the easiest to resolve, because you have a decision, the way that you want to respond, the way that you want to interact with the other person. I think the easiest to resolve, I think that prevention, you're preventing an altercation simply by your response. I still think it's the easiest to resolve out of the three.
So, Shemeka, you know what? You're really good at dancing. You're really good at dancing around the whole topic. Can you give an example of having an altercation and it being resolved? Can you give an example? Because you know what? I love it. Like, you love to dance every week. You know, you like to dance around the topic. You throw in, hey, you know what? Let's break that word apart. And even though you didn't break it apart, right? Because you got to look at the Latin root of the word to be able to know the true meaning or definition of the word. Because, you know, the Latin root right there for altercation, right, is altercatio, which means to argue with someone. So it doesn't matter how much you break it apart, you still see the word alter. And so that comes from the Latin root with arguing with somebody. So can you give us an example of
Well, so
altercation?
as an example, we're not going to use the two people's names that are very popular who had confrontation, altercation, and conflict, okay, at an award show. Let's just put it like that. You make the decision whether if there is a conflict, okay, you make a decision if you're going to confront or if it turns into an altercation. So I think that back again, if you alter the way that you respond, because that person did not have to respond to that. He could have just sat there and just, chilled in the cut, like Martin said, you know what I'm saying? But that's not what he chose or decided to do. So I think we can use any type of an example when it comes to altercation. Just like Kristen said, when it comes to confrontation, it doesn't have to be negative. It can be something positive. So can altercation, because you can prevent the altercation. Is the easiest to resolve because you're preventing it from even happening in the first place. So yeah, it's the easiest to resolve, but just because of that, you know what I mean? Because if you don't respond, if you respond in a positive way, then you're preventing that altercation. Like I said before, it's something that is verbal and is usually in front of other people. So if me and you get into it, you know what I'm saying? More than likely, like one of us is going to be calm. One of us might be amped up. If there's other people around, then, like she said before, the people are around surrounding you, and then they egg it on and then they make it worse.
Okay, so there was a comment. Linda had a comment, and so I'm going to read her comment before I address that, and then if Kristen wants to address it as well. But she said, "My thoughts: confrontation and conflict can be easy to resolve depending on the situation and the decision of the parties to resolve the situation. Most of the time, when a situation reaches altercation, there needs to be a mediator to resolve the situation." I totally agree, because you at that point cannot resolve it on your own. I totally agree. And so, Shemeka, so when there was an altercation with that situation you're talking about, when there was an altercation, there was not a resolution to the problem, because he became hostile. He became, exchange of words, he even cursed, So even at that point, it was a noisy, heated, angry dispute. So there was no resolution with that altercation. So I'm sorry.
But it still could have been
prevented,
though. That's what I'm saying. So the prevention, that's why it's easy to resolve, because you don't have to have it, period. You see what I'm saying?
But
so if you prevent something, then it doesn't happen, and then it's resolved because it never was an issue. That's what I'm saying.
But I think that prevention is confrontation. Like, I think if we're going with that example, and you believe all the other reports of everything that came out after that, like everybody's digging in the past, right? We're getting the receipts. Apparently this is a conflict that had been going on for a very long time. And if the first time something like this had happened, those two parties had said, hey, we respect each other, because we're both in the entertainment industry. Let's sit down. Let's talk this out. Let's confront this in a healthy way and not just let it sit and let it stew. Then it would have never got to the point of having an altercation. They wouldn't have to get to the point where there is all this fallout and all these other conflicts that arose because of it for those next 2 weeks, and all the think pieces and everything that we saw, right? Like, that would have even happened if they had confronted the real issue at the beginning.
That's really
so that's really good. That's good. So yeah, presented with a conflict, but see how when you resolve something so easily as addressing the conflict, the problem, when you resolve it while you are calm, and that's why I think that's where conflict comes in, because it's any type of disagreement, that right there is easier to resolve than just letting it go and build up. When it builds up over time, Then you get to the point where now you're confrontational. Now there's an altercation. Now things have completely gotten out of hand. So when you're presented with that problem, address it and solve it first before it gets out of hand. So that's why I'm saying conflict is easier to resolve, because it's at the lower level. And when it's at the lower level, it is easier to address. You can quickly, once that's resolved, it doesn't have to escalate any further.
And can we get that comment back up? I think Louise had a comment that was really, really good that we just want to put back up real quick. She says, Kristen is winning. I am with her all the way.
Thank you, Louise.
Yeah. So my sister's very wise. I still think altercation is the easiest to resolve out of the three, because it can be prevented, in my opinion. So.
And Monica says, why is conflict the lower level? Because, conflict is any type of disagreement. So we can have a disagreement about anything. Maybe my work ethics are a little bit different. Maybe my beliefs are a little bit different. Maybe I just don't agree with what you're saying. So I can just I can just say, okay, you know what? I see where you're coming from. I see your perspective, and I will respect that. And when I can respect that and there's a disagreement, then you know what I mean? There's really no problem outside of that. And that's why I say it's at the lower level, because, anybody, we all have been through conflicts. We all at one time or another have disagreed with somebody. We've all have faced a problem. But then what came out of that problem? How were you able to resolve it?
Mm-hmm. But can we agree to disagree, though?
No.
That was one of our past episodes. We can't agree to disagree? Oh, okay. I was just wondering. Okay. I was just wondering if we could agree to disagree.
So in your eyes, Jolene, conflict is whenever conflict, there's no action in it. It's just when you have a thought, maybe that's different than somebody else. Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. Why you think
it's a clash. It's a clash between differences that a person might have. You know what I mean? So I may not agree with maybe you and Shemeka don't clean the house the same way. Maybe you think that maybe the house should be cleaned this way. Maybe she thinks it should be cleaned that way, and you have differences, right? And you can honor and respect each other's differences without it getting any further, without then becoming confrontational and having an heated argument because you just totally disagree and say, no, that's not the way you clean it. That's not how you clean the toilet. That's not how you clean the bathtub, And so you can say, okay, well, you clean it your way, I'll clean it my way, and that's it. I mean, we have a conflict and we just move on.
And we're agreeing to disagree, though.
No.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. No. We're agreeing to disagree.
Because if you disagree with what I'm saying, you still disagree.
I know, but we agreeing, though. We agreeing to disagree. That's my thing.
So Monica says there's no conflict. I mean, that's no conflict. That's perspective. So having a different perspective, but I mean, I'm saying if I disagree with what you're saying, I can see perspective, but you can have a conflict because your perspective is different. If my perspective is different than Shemeka's perspective, then yeah, it can cause a conflict. Because, what if I think, okay, I want to go see a movie or something, and I want to see a movie because I think that this movie is better. Oh yeah, that's my perspective, and she might think differently. You want to see that movie because you think that it's better, but then we start to have it's a conflict. Now we can't agree to which movie we're going to see because our perspectives are different. So then, without it becoming confrontational or having an altercation over it, we'll just say, okay, let's compromise. That's a good word. Let's compromise. Let's meet in the middle so that, hey, Shemeka, you can watch your movie. This week we'll watch your movie. Next week we'll watch my movie. So the conflict has been resolved.
So that comment that just came up was my mama. I just want to thank her for participating tonight. She says, so we are agreeing to disagree. Absolutely. You can go back and check out that episode on Words versus Words with Friends. We had an episode about that, and we are agreeing to disagree. That's what I think.
But I think it's easier to agree to disagree when you have a confrontation. Because to me, conflict, you may both, again, like be on different sides of things, but sometimes you can have that in your mind and you're not being fully honest about it. You can be in a conflict and be passive aggressive about it. You can be in a conflict and just think in your head like, well, I don't want to go see that movie, so obviously she's not my friend, so the next time she asks me to do something for her, I'm just not going to do it, you know. But to me, whenever, again, like when you are confronting something, it might be both of you tackling the issue of saying, hey, we're going to put all this out on the table. Here's why I don't like this movie. Here's why you don't like this movie. So now that we're both honest with each other, then we can look and see what is the real issue here. And now we can agree to disagree.
Okay, baby sis.
Monica had a comment, and then Luis had one. So we'll go ahead and read both of those. Luis said, why not confront it before it gets out of control?
Thank you, Luis.
Okay. And then Monica says, exactly, Kristen. Okay. So, I mean, you both make valid points. You do. But hey, I see confronting. I don't see it as like confronting. I see it as approaching the person more than confronting, because I think like if I'm thinking confronting or confrontational, like I think of, okay, that's going to be negative. But if I'm approaching you, then I look at it as a different strategy or a different technique.
Okay.
I get that.
Okay. All right. So last thoughts, Kristen?
I mean,
any
honestly,
final comments?
Yeah, I think you guys both had great points, but I'm going to sum it up by saying what I said at the beginning. I think what y'all are both describing is confrontation, and it's just the de-escalated version of conflict and of altercation.
Okay.
Shemeka?
Me? Final comments? So for final comments, confrontation, altercation, and conflict are very similar. I do kind of think there are levels to it. Me and Joe, we take these words that are very similar and we do provide perspective. And so even with Kristen tonight, confrontation doesn't have to be something negative. With altercation, I think that you can alter the situation, and even with conflict. So we like to look at different perspectives. We appreciate you guys for joining us tonight, and those are my final comments and thoughts.
All right, and my final comments, we all have disagreements. We all are faced with some type of problem. Problems happen every day. They don't go away. But how you approach the problem really just has an effect on other people. How are you going to resolve? And I say that conflict is at the lower level, because when you're presented with a problem and then you can resolve it, there's no need to get confrontational. There's no need to have an altercation. So yes, I can see where you're coming from, Kristen, when you say you can confront the person in a very respectful way. I get that. I totally get it. It is your motive behind it. It is, what is your purpose and goal for coming at that person? What are they getting out of it? What are you getting out of it? And if both sides can come to a resolution, then great, perfect. But how can we handle conflict without it getting to the point of becoming just escalated or having triggers go off, or just getting out of hand? So Kristen, we thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been awesome. I mean, we thank you for your perspective. We thank you for your thoughts. We thank you for sharing that with all of us on the show today. So we want to know, do you have anything going on in your life? What do you want people to know about you?
Oh, what do we all want you to know about me? Well, probably the first thing is I completely freeze up whenever someone asks me that question. So that's probably the first thing you should know about me. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, like I said in my bio, I'm just a person. I'm in social work. I'm really passionate about helping other people. And I'm kind of in this process of becoming an adult and kind of learning myself. I had a picture of my life that I thought, my 20s would be. And now that I'm in my 30s, like realizing that that's not how it played out, but in the best way, kind of getting to know myself that way. And so that's kind of what I like to talk about now. Like, I'm always like listening to podcasts and learning more about like, how do you form values and like, who are you and how do normal people do this? So I guess, yeah, that's me.
That's cool. So I just wanted to ask you, as my baby sister, one question is, I know you love to travel, and so out of the places that you have traveled recently, what was your most favorite place to travel to?
Oh, that was a very good question. I actually think I'm gonna go with Alaska. I think because it really surprised me. I know everybody acts like I travel so much. I feel like I do, but I mostly travel to visit friends. So it's like you're still doing the kind of the same things you do, you know, in your hometown. But Alaska, I was like, I don't like the cold. I don't like the snow. I'm gonna be freezing. Like, this is not gonna be fun. And it was just so beautiful, like completely untouched. Like everywhere you look, the mountains are just huge. The snow is everywhere. And just very picturesque. Like it really looked like what you see like in TV and movies and things like that. So that was always my favorite.
That's cool. And I just have one more, Joe, for her. As my baby sister, you are a very deep thinker. When you would post your comments on our podcast, we would just be like, whoa, because you're a very deep thinker. Even when I talk to you now, being your older sister, I'm like, oh my God, my sister is so freaking deep. So what I want to know is, what do you think has contributed to that?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I'm very much an introvert. So I think just growing up, I think I kind of kept to myself a lot. And I tend to, I don't know if you noticed, but I tend to observe more than respond. And so if you ask me a question directly, usually I can tell you, oh, I think this, and this, and I probably have a lot to say about it. But I tend to kind of sit back and wait and see kind of how a situation is going to play out. And the older I've gotten, the more that I've had experience with different people, the more I realize that you really have to look behind what someone is saying or what they're doing to be able to understand who they are and how they think. And in order to do that, you have to be able to open up yourself to a lot of different perspectives. And so I'm very conscious about trying to observe something from all sides. When someone gives me an opinion, think about like, well, why have I always seen it this way? You know, how could I see it differently? Why did they see it that way? And so I think really just that's something that interests me and something that's I've found helpful in my life. And so I think that, yeah, like that's, I don't know, I think deeply, I don't know. But I don't think that it's something that everybody can't do. Like, I think it just takes practice of kind of taking a step back and being like, okay, this situation happened. What were some other ways that I could have approached it? What are some other ways that I should think about it? That person said that thing. How else should I think? You know, do I agree with them? Do I disagree? And why? You know?
Well, Kristen, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. So I know you're an analytical thinker. You think critically, so a lot of times you do tend to maybe attract people who are very similar to you. But one thing that I did want to say is enjoy your singleness. This time in your life, getting to know who you are and, about yourself, I would say enjoy that. And then the other thing is, you are, like Shemeka said, such a deep thinker and, you're very analytical. Don't let anyone put you down. Like the Bible says, because of your youth, don't let anybody put you down because of your youth. You have a lot to say and you have a lot to offer, and don't accept anybody putting you down because of what you have to say. So we definitely appreciate everything that you said tonight, your perspective, your feedback. So your voice does matter. It does count. And we truly thank you for it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. And I really appreciate you guys having me. It was fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. Really, so where can people follow you?
So you can find me at Instagram at KShanae, and on Twitter at Chris, the number 10 _ Shanae.
Awesome. And you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Jolene Vasquez.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Mika Liz. You can also follow me on Facebook, Shemeka Montgomery.
So, guys, once again, we thank you for joining us this evening. This was our last episode. This was our season finale. Guys, you know what? We're going to be back in July. So, we're gonna be doing some new things, you know. So we will be excited to see you and have you back in July. But you can go ahead and you can follow us on Facebook at WvWWF. You can look at past episodes. We're on any major podcast platform out there, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. So you can follow us just about anywhere. Look at those past episodes and our past guests that we had in season 1. So as we're getting everything together for season 2, we're going to come back in July. But we want to encourage you guys to vote right after the show on tonight's topic, which is the easiest to resolve: altercation, conflict, or confrontation. So, guys, we will see you in July on WvWWF at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And until then, we hope that you enjoy your June, your summer break, your summer vacation. And we will see you back here on Words vs. Words with Friends podcast in July. You've been watching Words vs. Words with Friends podcast, brought to you by Next 15 Podcast Productions. If you would like to support the podcast, go to next15podcast.com and click the Buy Me Coffee tab, where we will receive your donations of any size. Thank you in advance and for watching the podcast. We will see you next week.